keep an eye out if I start to flounder. Let me see.
Thank you, Jeff. As always, just a spectacular job of somehow making this complicated material a little bit easier. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again. We're going to start our Arrowhead Union High School 2023 annual meeting. So if you could please join me, we'll stand and have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I will officially call the meeting to order. Please know at this point I'm truly acting as a temporary chair of this meeting. In a few moments, we're going to be electing the chair for the remainder of the night. Before we kick off the meeting, I would like to take a moment to just recognize our board members who work long and hard to serve the school and our community. So board members, as I call your name, if you could please raise your hand, I would really appreciate it. We'll start with Chris Ferris, who is our vice president, chair of policy committee, and he fills an at-large seat. Daryl Beneker is chair of buildings and grounds committee, and he represents Lake Country. Tim Evers is co-chair of finance and legislation and represents the Heartland Lakeside area. Amy Hemmer, chair of curriculum committee, and she represents Merton. Tim Langer, chair of personnel committee, fills the Stone Bank seat. Brandon Miller. Brandon represents the Richmond district. Craig Thompson. Craig fills the second at-large seat. Lynn Volkopans, co-chair of finance and legislation, and Lynn represents the North Lake district. I'm Kim Schubert. I'm very honored to serve as board president, and I represent the Swallow seat. I also want to recognize and very much welcome our new superintendent, Conrad Farner, this evening. I know he's been working long and hard to come up to speed quickly, since he's only been on board with us for a couple of weeks. And a shout out to our former superintendent, Laura Myra, who did a yeoman's job in helping to prepare all of us for the meetings this evening. I also want to give yet again more recognition to Jeff Gross. He spends countless hours in putting together the budget, and to be able to distill down what is such complicated information into something that's relatively comprehensible to us mere mortals. You have a superpower I really am appreciative for. And then lastly, I want to recognize Kate McGraw, who provides great administrative support for Conrad, his team, and certainly our board. So our first order of business is to elect a chairperson to chair the meeting this evening. The person so elected may or may not be a member of the school board. If the meeting is adjourned to another date, the same chairperson will preside. If you make a nomination, please state your name so that it can be properly included in the minutes. And just as a reminder, only residents of the Arrowhead School District are allowed to vote. So given that, I will entertain nominations for chair of the meeting for this evening.
I'm Chris Ferris. I'd like to nominate Daryl Beneker as our chairperson this evening.
I would second that nomination. though I very much appreciate, Tim and Troy, your nomination. I would decline this evening. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing none. We have a motion for Daryl Banneker to chair the meeting this evening. All in favor, vote aye. Aye. Opposed? We have a chair for the meeting. And Daryl, thank you for taking this on. Daryl did an exceptional job last year, and I'm pleased to have you do it once again.
On you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Kim. We'll get things started off here with the treasurer's report. So I'm going to hand it over to Tim Evers.
Thanks, Daryl. I'll just do that from my seat over here. Jeff Gross, our Director of Business Services, just completed the full review of our budget, just during the budget hearing meeting. Don't think we had a whole lot of new people walk in since then, so it should still be fresh in everyone's minds. However, a video of the hearing will be updated on the Arrowhead high school website very soon. But essentially, the treasurer's report is summarized. You pick up one of these handouts, summarized on pages 15 through 18 in the annual report document. And the complete treasurer's report will be available at the district office when the 2022/2023 audit is complete. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tim. All right, next we're going to get it started. Kicked off with the year in review with our new superintendent, Mr. Partner.
Thank you, Daryl. Got a mic. Hopefully the technology will work. Try to step up so I don't have my neck too much. Thanks for being here, everyone. I also want to thank everybody. The first few weeks of the job have been phenomenal. It's been a proverbial fire hose of information coming at me, but I've done the best I can, getting up to speed. A little awkward to do an annual meeting presentation when you have only been here for a few weeks, but as Kim mentioned, Laura and I did a heck of a job having much of the stuff prepared. I want to thank all the board members. Super supportive. Really appreciate the opportunity to be part of Arrowhead. I also want to acknowledge the administrative team. Have been phenomenal to work with, including Laura, who transitioned me for a week, and it was mostly the fire hose was her, and she let me have it. A lot of information. I also want to thank Kate, doing a heck of a job keeping things where they need to be. Couldn't have this set up without her. I think also I want to thank the buildings and grounds crew. The work they've been doing this month that I've been here has just been unbelievable, getting the facilities ready. So let's jump into the annual meeting presentation. Very typical presentation where you talk about the vision and the mission statement. I'm not going to read these to you, but you can read them and see what we're about. Is that mic still working? Okay, I'm getting a little weird feedback. But our goal is to make sure our students have great pathways so that they can take advantage of what life has to offer. And I really like the mission statement in Arrowhead because those words about being engaged and confident and continuous learners, those are really important words that I don't see in a lot of statements for other school districts. And I think they are contributing to what makes Arrowhead a little bit different from other places. I'm not watching anybody. So the enduring goals that go with the vision and the mission, we want our students to keep striving for these things. So we strive to do these things for them. So they are prepared beyond high school. They are going to have a nurturing culture. We definitely emphasize communication, and we're always working on our facilities, which we'll talk a little bit more as we keep going through. All of that you heard from Jeff about the great bang for the buck essentially you're getting in Arrowhead. Here's some of the evidence for what a great product you're getting. And Chris mentioned that too. When you compare our ACT scores to the area districts, this is the most recent data that's available to do these kinds of comparisons. So it's basically taking the seniors and the juniors and giving an average. And you can see that we're just behind one other district only. And that's a pretty impressive list of accomplishment when you compare the other districts. Another example of the great quality that we're getting are our AP exams. 88% of our students are passing those AP exams. This is an opportunity that our students get to get college credit while they're attending high school. And that's a phenomenal deal, great for them and planning for their futures, great cost savings for them. So this is another indication of the success we're having at Arrowhead. Some other indicator of engagement and the success that we're having, when again, you can see the numbers. Obviously, Arrowhead's compared to the state, it's not even close when you look at our graduation rates. When you look at our post-high school enrollment, pretty phenomenal number that over 3/4 of our students are going on post-high school to other higher ed institutions. 91% are going to 4-year colleges, and almost 10% going to the 2-year colleges. Attendance rate, dropout, chronic absenteeism, hardly issues in Arrowhead. And our discipline rate, obviously 3.2, is about 1/3 of what we see across the state. So our students are having a great experience and they're doing a great job. Some other recognitions, 3.0 or higher, almost 3/4 of our staff are getting a 3.0 or higher. We're one of the best high schools according to U.S. News World Report. Also getting recognition as a STEM school. We exceed expectations on the state report card, and we had 7 National Merit Scholarship semifinalists out of just 16,000 across the whole country. Our visual performing arts are amazing. I had a chance to walk around the building and see some of these things. Last spring, I was able to come and see some performances. And I was just blown away by the amazing things that happened in this very theater. The Drama Broadway Company performances are amazing. I don't know of other districts that have the quality of performance that you're seeing here in Arrowhead. I mean, it was just beyond impressive. Instrumental music program with that trip to DC, pretty amazing honor to do that. And then the visual work is impressive as ever, all kinds of awards. Okay, and then athletically, some of the highlights, unbelievable athletic performance as well. When you see the number of state championship teams, runner-up teams, qualifying teams, we had 12 conference champion teams last year. That's more than all the other districts combined in the Classic 8, so that's a pretty amazing accomplishment. And just as important, if not most important, the scholar athletes, you know, to have that 124 12th grade students with a 3.5 or higher, just fantastic. And we also had many state individual champions as well. Another amazing thing about our students and our staff is how they give back to the community. I've been blown away at some of the things that I've already been learning about our students. The Health Occupation Streets America with this blood drives, literally helping save lives. We've done multiple food drives, all kinds of groups, Student Senate, Warhawk Interact Club, ice hockey programs, swim teams, all doing things to make the community better. This kind of captures the total hours of 10,000 hours that our students have contributed to the community. Everything from free events for veterans, collecting toiletries for the homeless, volunteering to help youth and aging, and this golf tournament that raised over $100,000, bringing their total to $1 million in benefits to help the back fund. Some staff recognitions. We had our school psychologist at Arrowhead, Mr. Kevin Lewandowski, was a Herb Cole Fellowship Award winner, so you can see nice monetary prize that he got for that. We had our first Support Staff Superstar Award for Ms. Christy Torres, who retired from the district but is helping out now in her retirement. And then our Teachers of the Year, Tamara Lindmeyer and Anthony Christian, both recognized for their accomplishments in the district last year. Equally impressive, not only are our students and staff doing great things for the community, but our community is giving stuff right back to Arrowhead. So when you see all of the types of generous gifts, the Arrowhead Scholarship Foundation, over $100,000 in scholarships for 110 graduating seniors. During 22-23, all kinds of donations were given to the different programs that we have happening here, from Fine Arts, to the Mullet Ice Center, and all the different graduation celebrations. Piggybacking on Jeff's presentation, and some of this you might have seen or heard from his, Arrowhead has been doing a great job with our taxpayers' money, phenomenal job. We have reduced costs by $5 million since Act 10 was passed through all kinds of different efforts, consolidating staff, benefits changes, operational efficiencies. Our Moody's AAA1 rating is better than 90% of Wisconsin districts. Fund balance, unbelievably healthy fund balance, and as Jeff said, we're one of those few districts that doesn't have to borrow money when money's tight during the year. That saves taxpayers. You don't have to pay the interest on the loans that you borrow for that, so that's a phenomenal indication of our financial health. Our taxes go down, and despite all of the increasing costs, our per pupil expense has been staying right around the state average. So Arrowhead taxpayers are getting a great return on the investment. So speaking back about those referendums, so here's the one that Jeff mentioned to you. You can see it in a number of publications that have already been put out. I'm gonna work really hard to get some more information about the referendums that have been going on across the state, because there are some pretty amazing numbers, and I apologize I wasn't able to pull them together in time for tonight's meeting. But the percentage of districts who have gone to operational referendum is unbelievably high. Like I'm talking 80% somewhere in that ballpark. Don't quote me on it, but I'll get that. And the number of districts who've gone to multiple referendums is unbelievably high. So when you look at this and you see Arrowhead way down here with only one pass in all this time since 2000, we are way behind, falling way behind. When you see the numbers, this is all the cumulative debt that they've passed for referendum. So it's debt, recurring, non-recurring. This is the actual money, total dollar amount that they would be getting that they can apply to educating their students. And yes, some of these districts are much larger, but even when you do a proportionate analysis, you can see that Arrowhead is falling way behind, and we are not having the same resources to educate our students. This next slide is the same exact numbers, but I did want to call out these blue shaded districts. These are our competition. And believe me, when I tell you, you saw a little bit of the importance of enrollment from Jeff's presentation, we will lose students. And when your enrollment goes down, your funding goes down and your problems are exacerbated. Open enrollment in this state, and again, I started way back before there was such a thing as open enrollment. You didn't used to have that flexibility. Open enrollment lets you enroll your child in any district that you want. If they've got seats and they'll take you, you can move your child to another district. You just have to provide the transportation. So districts that are very close to us will definitely be attractive. And families will say, I'd rather take my child to this district because they have better facilities, they have more smaller class sizes, better programs, all kinds of reasons that they would go to these other districts. We are competing with these districts. Look at the dollar amounts these districts have, and look at what we got. And this is all done after this year, isn't it, Jeff? The referendum money
We've got one more year after this year.
after this year? Okay.
5 years of 1.7 million.
Thank you. So this is a huge issue that we have to figure out, what are we going to do if we're going to compete with these other districts? So looking ahead for the rest of 23-24, our big focus is going to be on doing everything we can so our students are ready. I'm a huge champion of a rigorous academic program. We have to have high expectations. If our teachers have the same high expectations that you have for your students, and we get our students to have those same high expectations, we're going to do great things. And we want our students to be able to have the type of career that they choose that is meaningful to them. We really want to engage our students so that they take ownership for their learning. You'll hear me say this over and over and over again. Students should not just be coming into a room, having information kind of dumped in their brain, regurgitating it. That's not learning. That's not getting an education. We want our students to own their learning, monitor their learning, big on metacognition. They need to know when they're not getting something, so they ask the right questions and they go to the right resources so that they can master it. We have to get students to own their learning. And we will continue to be fiscally responsible. So that is all I have for the annual meeting. I thank you for being here tonight. I really wish we could get more people to these kinds of meetings, but it's a credit to you that you did come. And I tried to go fast because I'm warm. I guess I'm being warm. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Conrad. Next on the agenda is to set the annual meeting date. Motion to allow the Board of Education to set the date and time between May 15th and October 31st, 2024. Moved by Troy. Do we have a second? Amy Hammer, second. Okay, and please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion of setting the annual board meeting between May 15th and October 31st, 2024. Raise the hands. Okay, looks like we have the majority there. Motion passes. All right, old business. During this time, we're going to have any question regarding last year's operation will be answered if at all possible. And any other old business may be brought up from the floor. So I'll come out with the mic if anyone has questions. Going.
No. Stay within that range.
Show of hands, going once, going twice. We got one, all right.
Always appreciate your chairmanship. I have to be brutally honest with this question because this relates to our financial health. This relates to our ability to attract open enrollment, and it relates to whether we'll be at risk of exposure to legal fees going forward. It relates to our reputation, etc. It relates to the referendum and the ability to achieve some unity in our community, which we will need if we go to the referendum. I've seen what happened in Oconomowoc, and they lack that unity. My brutal honesty is that we have had a year, 2022 to 2023, where our entire district has had some serious challenges. We've had governance issues at our feeder schools. I mean, to have a board member found guilty of election fraud, we've had behavioral issues resulting in censure at a feeder district. We have had a range of policies put forward that are frankly very controversial and unpopular. And none of this seems to be setting us up for a good run at 2023, 2024, especially if we're going to be looking at mobilizing the community for a referendum. So I guess my question is, should we take the last year as an indication as to how next year is going to go, or will we see something different?
Thanks, John. Any response from the board?
Thank you so much for your question. While it certainly isn't our board's purview to comment on some of the issues that you've outlined that are going on with some of the K-8s, I guess I can comment on those things that are relative to what you kind of issued against Arrowhead. While you would suggest that the policies that have been put in place over the last year or two are controversial, I would agree with you to some degree. They have been controversial. I believe you used the word unpopular. And I would suggest that they are certainly unpopular with some, but in fact, they're greatly popular with another large segment of our constituency. So I think it is representative of what the larger faction of our community was asking of us, would like to see happen, and the policies were put in place to again be looked on favorably by a majority of people.
I just want a clarification. How do you know that they are popular in that respect? Because none of these policies were part of a platform that anyone read on. So I'd just like to know. I don't know why I say so popular, because I see all the people who sign petitions and show up at school board meetings. But can you tell me why you say popular? That's my only follow-up question.
Mm-hmm. I think I can't speak for other board members. I can only speak for myself. But I do know in speaking with some of the other board members, they certainly have expressed, like I have had the experience, that there have been a great number of constituents that have come forward and applauded the policies themselves. And so while you might represent a portion of the population that you would suggest see these unfavorably, there are a great number of other people that look on them with favor and are expressing those opinions to board members. So I don't know if there's any other board members that would like to comment.
Yeah, just to add on that, I mean, I think it's part of the board member's duty to gauge interest and favorability to policy, that we're considering, right? And something that I do as an individual board member, I can't speak for everyone else, is I do poll my constituents. And you can extrapolate a lot of data based on the feedback that you get. So I personally back up what Kim just said. I think about 90 to 95% of my constituents are in support of some of these policies. And I think that's going to set us up for successful referendums. So I think we're building a trust with the constituents that elected us to come forward with this kind of stuff.
Thank you, Brandon. Kim, anyone else? Thanks, John, for the question. Anyone else from the audience have a question? All right. Oh, I'm sorry, one more.
Mike Hoyda in the Swallow District. So you talked a little bit about referendum as being the logical and the only option that you have. There are some feeder schools that are definitely facing similar budgetary challenges. I'm wondering what this board feels about in a given year, in a given K-8 feeder, where there's gonna be a referendum for Arrowhead and a referendum for their K-8 feeder. And how they can join forces, or voters, to try to get the voters to vote ideally yes for both of those things. Any thoughts or comments from the board?
I can provide a thought. I think your question and just the thought process that you had to even ask that question is spot on. So the short answer is yes, we are going to have conversations with the other feeder districts on an overall multi-year strategy as to what the greater community is going to look like, with relationships with feeder schools as well as then our Union High School, making sure that something that we may decide to do doesn't impact what they do. Likewise, what they're going to potentially propose doesn't impact what we want to do. So we're going to have to be very transparent in our planning with some of the local feeder schools as well. And have them as a part of our longer term strategy is how we do the best thing from a referendum, if we decide to go to full referendum. But pull them into our process for the strategy planning piece of it.
Thanks, Tim. Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, it's a really great question, Mike. I think that also as a union district, we also need to start having some tough talks. We have a lot of new superintendents in the district, but I think we need to begin having talks around the idea of consolidations, the idea of working together to find the best, the best answer to this, because I think as the populations keep dropping in all of our schools, this is going to be exacerbated more and more and more every year. So there's a big picture discussion, something that we actually started with the last Swallow superintendent, where boards from each of the feeder schools would get together and have discussions. So I think we need to keep having some really deep dives on this and some tough talks, because the 5-year and 10-year looking forward is gonna not get any easier.
Thanks, Chris. We have one question.
I'd like to keep rapid fire of several questions. Sarah Ferguson. One of the main questions that Chris just answered is open enrollment down through all of the high schools that we see across the state. I know in 2010, the birth rate was more at like 2.1, 2.2 for replacement value. Now in Wisconsin, I think we're about 1.6, 1.7. So I'm assuming it's only going down. But I was wondering, have we always had open enrollment at AHS? Or when did we first start open enrollment? Has the number ever been this high? And also, those people who open enroll their students to AHS I'm assuming they would not have to come into the referendum, even though they open enroll their students here.
With open enrollment, Jeff, do you have the stats for open enrollment and when it started?
Actually, I don't know when.
It counts.
I'm not sure when open enrollment started.
Probably about 20 years ago is my guess.
So we can check for sure. I'll get back to it. It's a great question.
I missed the end of your question. You just.
Oh, yeah, this is the highest we've ever been for number of kids coming into Arrowhead. Absolutely.
For open enrollment?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's around, close to 280 now. I think is where we're at for coming in.
And non-residents cannot vote on a referendum. So it's only the citizens or make up the taxpayers of the district that get to vote for a referendum.
That's what I was saying, yeah, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry, I missed the end of that.
thank you.
Google tells me that it's been 98 or 99. Jeff, correct my stats or figures wrong, but in terms of open enrollment versus the students that open enrolled outside of our district, what is that rough ratio? I was gonna say it's about 2 to 1 coming in, but we have more open enrolling in than we have leaving.
Right, about 280 coming in and about 80 going out. So we're plus 200. I'd hate to be the flip of that. And some districts are there.
And that's pretty consistent.
It's been consistent. Yeah, our ends have been growing. So I don't anticipate that continuing, but I mean, if it levels off here and it doesn't start to go the other way, it'll be okay.
I would just, your question is one that I've reflected on over the years. We're fairness when open enrollment, families aren't contributing with our residents are. And I think the way that it works out is that our district will build the building, provide the facility. And open enrollment gives us a mechanism to try and get full use out of these buildings by bringing in a population consistent with what we have available to us. It doesn't pay for the facilities, but it does generate a positive revenue flow above and beyond the cost of each of those individual students to help us provide broad programs and excellent instruction for all of us. I think it's a net positive for rate. The district pays for the facility.
And I was just trying to gauge, I'm sorry, how much lower our actual replacement is due to further replacement of students coming in, especially in the future as the area gets older.
But I think another way to look at it and answer your question, I know we don't have the stats here tonight, but we've looked at them in different either community meetings or in a regular board meeting. But as we look at how other districts have actually increased their enrollment, where we've seen a decrease in ours, and we need to start asking ourselves, why is that? So being relatively new to the area and to the district myself, we chose to move here based off of the academic reputation of Arrowhead. We didn't tour the school and the facility and the grounds. We just knew based off of the academics, this is where we wanted to be. This is the school that we chose and the district we chose to live in. Had we gone around and toured schools, I probably would have said Cedarburg, just based off of how their facilities look. So we got to start asking ourselves those real questions as to why other districts are growing and ours is declining, if we still have a higher open enrollment rate than we have kids going to another district. So it's a real big study that we need to do, as well as then figure that out. And if we decide to go to referendum, that conversation, that evidence will be a big, I think, talking point within that discussion as well.
Yeah, those points are well taken. One of the things we can look at is what about those 80 students who are going out? Could we capture any of them back? And same for families going to private schools. Might there be things that we could do and learn that would actually bring more residents in? Because as Jeff mentioned, you want resident students more than open enrollment students. But the other key thing about open enrollment to remember is you never should be increasing your costs with open enrollment. The process is you identify where do you have open seats so that you don't want to take a bunch of open enrollment because then have to hire another teacher because that won't work. The numbers don't work. But if you have seats that are just going to be empty anyway, that's where open enrollment is a phenomenal program that it does help you offer more things to kids, keep programs full, give the full experience. But it really should never be the type of thing that you're going to lose money because you added any expenses.
Good point, Conrad. Any other questions from the group?
Hi, Danielle Catterzoli. I'm a parent in the district. I just had a thought. I did have a question as to where we were at on the cell phone policy that was talked about and then kind of stopped being talked about. But this is kind of piggybacking off of that. There is division in the district. I mean, you'll have that when there's two different views on any one topic. I did really appreciate when the board was studying if it was a good idea to have a cell phone policy or not, how you put together the survey and sent it out to the students, the teachers. I don't know who else was filled out with that. But my thought would be, before we do more policies where we're saying, you know, people are bringing this to our attention, it's a concern, if you could send out surveys in regards to those. So instead of just having someone say, a ton of people came to me and they're concerned with this, you can have some data to back it up, like there was with the survey. You know, 80% of people thought cell phones were a problem and things like that. I think it would be helpful so that when policies are getting passed, instead of having a take your word for it kind of approach to it, if there was a little bit of data to back it up so that it was proven that it was something that a majority of people wanted versus not a majority and so forth. So my question, that was a suggestion more than anything else, but my question is where are we at with the cell phone policy? I feel a lot of the kids are questioning and wondering what's going on and if we have any idea as to where that's going or not going. So that's my question.
Thanks, Danielle.
Hello? I was the one who originally proposed the cell phone policy, and that was based on some meetings that we had had previously where the community would come speak. And we had some teachers at those meetings and they were saying how disruptive the cell phones are. And that was just a little, you know, a little mention. And I kept thinking about it. And I talked to other constituents that have children in the schools and they were saying, you know, the cell phones are a problem. They can get a hold of their child anytime during the day, even though they're not supposed to be readily available if they're in the classroom. So I proposed, I looked at different schools and what they were doing, like Germantown totally banned cell phones. Some of them, there's a yonder bag where you can store a cell phone and it stays in that yonder bag during the day and then you get your phone back at the end of the day, but you carry your phone with you, you just can't have access to it. So we started with committee meetings and policy talking about it. And originally I was for a total ban. I thought it would improve socializing. Kids at lunch would sit and talk to one another rather than be on their phone all the time and less disruptive classroom time. I was the one who worked with Laura Myra, the former superintendent, on the survey that went out to the teachers, and that's the 80% that came back and said they are an issue. I know the kids didn't like what I was proposing, but I thought in the long run, it might help improve work, paying attention in class and that type of thing. Well, it comes down to it. After we did that and we had the administration looked at the current policy and they were supposed to come up with a recommendation for us. So at it was a policy meeting a few months ago, would you say? So they presented what they learned, and through all of this, we always had a policy on the books. It just wasn't being enforced. It got lax as the year went on, and some teachers would have shoe caddies where they'd have the kids put the phone in the shoe caddy, and that's how they take attendance. Others didn't. Others allowed kids to have phones on their desk, like other teachers didn't. So there was no consistency. So now we've got this policy that already existed, and administration has said to us that they are going to enforce it, and they will mention it to staff at the beginning of the year and keep checking in just to make sure, okay, you're following the cell phone policy. If they do need it for educational purposes, that's fine. But they're going to start really enforcing it. And I don't believe personally that was happening before. So, you know how it is with the dress code that begins in the beginning of the year, and they're really tough on kids when they come wearing things that show a lot of body parts and stuff. And then they have them put on sweats, or you know, they have them get clothing from here to wear to cover up. But then as the year goes by, that gets lax too. You know, kids start pushing the envelope and it's not addressed or enforced as it should be. in the beginning of the year when the year is fresh. So hopefully, the cell phone policy that we have on the books is going to be enforced this year. The kids will have their phones, but they should not be using them in the classroom unless the teacher designates this is for educational purposes. So we'll see how that goes, and then we always said we could revisit it too if it isn't successful. So I hope that answers your question. Sure, thank you.
Just, thank you for responding to that. I think we worked through it quite well, and Principal Kurth is left, charged with, procedurally, the kind of enactment of the policy that is on the books. So I know he's going to be talking with faculty as they come back to school, as Amy mentioned. And, if you attend our September board meeting, Principal Kurth will be on the agenda to update on the policy itself and the enactment of the policy.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Kim. Anyone else from the? Going once? One twice? All right, let's move on to new business. We have, the first thing is our district-owned textbooks. We have a motion to approve the following textbook fee is recommended. Book rental is $70 per student.
I move that we adopt it.
All right. Do I have a second? Discussion? All right. All in favor? Say aye or raise their hands. All right. Looks like we have the majority there. Motion carries. Okay. Next thing, salaries of the school board members. Oops, just a second here. The annual meeting establishes the salaries of the school board members. At the present time, annual salaries are established at $3,400 per board. Can I get a motion?
I move that we leave the number the same as it's been for several years at 3,400.
Thanks, Craig. Do I have a second? Okay, Darcy, a second. Discussion?
The only thing I would add is, just today, Conrad sent out a chart that basically illustrated where the Arrowhead School Board ran relative to many other school boards in terms of what their annual pay is, and you guys are getting a half of a bargain.
I think it translates to an hourly rate of $1.85, so I think it's not that high. All right. All right.
The only other discussion I have, we can put this on a future agenda item later, but to figure out how I can defer my salary for a scholarship without having tax penalty with it. So something I've been thinking about and would want to consider, is something that we can discuss.
Okay, no,
For what it's worth.
great.
We've had that discussion a few times. Everbeer's brought it up as well. It has been discussed, I think, a couple of times in the last 2 years, and when Laura was still here.
Microphone.
In essence, the only way to make that is for you to flat your pay and turn it around towards the scholarship.
That's the same roadblock I was running into as well. Yep, okay.
I think there are a number of people on the board that would like to do the same. I don't believe it's possible.
Okay. All right. So the motion is to keep the annual salary at $3,400 per board member. Can all in favor, please raise your hands. All right, looks like we have a majority. Motion passes. Now we're getting into the tax levy for the ensuing year. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So we have two items here. The first one is the tax levy for capital expansion fund. which could be found on page 14 of your packet in the amount of $300,000 is recommended for the ensuing school year. Can I get a motion?
I'll make
Okay, Kim, and can I get a second? Chris Ferris, second. Discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? Motion passes. Second item, tax levy for operations and long-term debt services in the amount of $17,658,485 is recommended for the ensuing school year. Can I, and can I get a motion?
I would move that we approve a tax levy of $658,485, only because of the.
All right, sounds good, Tim. Can I get a second? Craig Thompson, second. Discussion. All in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, discussion, other new business? Anything out there? All right, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I see some confusion. And I think the numbers up there might be, so if you look at the bottom, there's a total, it's combining the two that were just approved together. So it's the 300,000 plus the 17,600.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other new business? All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Amy Hammer, all right. Second. All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
You can vote on that.
Oh, can we vote on that? All in favor? Excellent. Thank you for everyone attending. And have a great evening.